Hey guys, Darcy here, and today we're gonna look at the mix of one of my songs. Let's jump into it. Alright guys, we're in Luna here, and we have a song that I recently released with an artist that I work with on a regular named Petey. The song is called Woo. It's a Wu-Tang style type track. It also features two other artists, one named Spitty and Justo the MC. It's a fire, like boom bap style track, but with a little bit of my type of flavor, my type of like sound type production, trying to, keep a little of the old, bring a little of the new, trying to find that place in the middle. And so let's break down this track. It's overall a pretty simple track. I produced this one, mixed it, mastered the whole deal. And so right now we're just looking at the excuse me, the mixed version of the track. And a couple of things I want to call out here. If we look at stuff like, for instance, our drums or our bass, if we actually pull up the mixer for these, what we'll notice is that there's no inserts on these tracks, and this is because what I did is I bounced all these out and then brought them back in just because I needed to get more processing power back. I was pretty much at the limit of my computer, and I knew I needed a lot more going on when I started bringing the other artist vocals in. So one of the things I did right out of the gate before I mixed the whole track was just give myself back the processing power. One thing I also want to call out, the 808 in this one is actually really a bass instrument. And so that bass instrument is actually from Shape itself. And yeah, it's just using that Luna instrument extension, brought that in. It sounded fantastic. And then, let's take a listen to the beat. Actually, a little bit of the track, and then I'll solo out parts of the beats. You can kind of hear what's going on there. So let's hit play.
Will all who wish to die please raise their hands?
Why? Hail Darcy. Why?
I have bad news.
Oh, me. Why?
Ladies and gentlemen, it was a cold-blooded, premeditated murder.
Yo, I really get disrespected by all these little amateurs. Switcher talks to the pros, they really like my stamina. Steadily dropping hits, they running with their camera. Oh my god, that's Petey. Did you know he's from Canada?
All right, you guys sense the vibe. So now let's listen to the instrumental and hear how this thing kind of breaks down. Let's start with the drums because it's very important to this track. So we're going to solo all drums. So most of this is just, most of the instruments I have are just emphasizing the main drum loop. If I circle in on that. Bring in the kick. That percussion, I'm pretty sure, is very light. Just a couple of hits, something to add some space, and then we got like a tom roll in around this point, which is like a transitional piece. I love that tom roll. Right, and then we hear the Luna bass extension I was referring to earlier. Solo that. Yeah, that just sounds fat. And then we take a listen to the melody here. So it's really actually just one sample chop and a vocal that's pitched against it every so often.
Will all who wish to die please raise their hands?
I have bad news for you. Ladies and gentlemen,
it's really simple. Now the sample here was a chop up from using, it's a splice sample, but it's a chop up using Serato sample, so it's a little bit off the grid. Just got that feel to it, which is what you need. Now the one thing that's really interesting about this track is that there's three different vocals, three different artists, and so trying to bring them all together, especially when you record different microphones, different places, not all the same level of quality, so that was definitely an interesting challenge. For Petey, which is the first artist, I use a lot of API pieces along the the way. Some of that is EQ. Some of that is compression on different parts of the vocals, and then using the filters and a little bit of preamp for some of the vocals. Also as well here, using some tape to go through as well. So if we solo in on him and bring up to his vocals.
Yo, I really get disrespected by all these little amateurs. Switcher talks to the pros, they really like my stamina. Steadily dropping hits, they run it with their camera. Oh my god, that's Petey. Did you know he's from Canada? Hockey stick.
I gotta bring that dub back in.
Yo, I really get disrespected by all these little amateurs. Switcher talks to the pros, they really like my stamina. Steadily dropping hits, they run it with their camera. Oh.
And I think all of the ad-libs in this track are actually going into a single ad-lib bus. And then I also have a single dubs bus as well that I'm pushing all of these into. So if we scroll down here and we look at all of the dubs are going into a dub bus so that I could give them a very similar sound as well as the ad-lib. So actually, no, the dubs are just being used for leveling. Whereas the ad-libs actually have the same processing on them, and that's just to save resourcing. And then basically what I'm doing with them, so I process these through the API, and then they all hit the PD channel, and I think the sound was pretty good there, so we basically just left it with some EQ and pushed that into the main Vox channel. The main Vox channel put some general compression and preamp on them to try to equalize the voices a bit, and then that all goes into the all Vox, which is just de-essing and smoothing out the sound. Then if we look at someone like Spitty over here, there's one API, a little bit going on his dub track before it goes into the dubs, but really everything else is kind of left as is, and then we're doing we're adding a little bit of a preamp and some EQ on his sum bus. And then we go over to Justo, and there's significantly more on this vocal. So we have the API leading that into some CVOX to clean up some background sound issues, some suppressor, which in this case, yeah, it's being used as like a de-esser, but also like a smoothing of the high end. And then Cambridge EQ, we're doing a bunch of different ducking because there were some actual recording issues in this vocal. Doing similar things on the dubs and the ad-libs in terms of, again, Cambridge EQ to clean up some problem areas and to cut some highs and lows. Using distressor to thicken up the dubs. And then we get to his sum bus, and again, there's multiple things going here. We're adding API preamp to add some saturation, but some transparent saturation. We're using 1176 to even things out, the CL1B to smooth things out from a compression perspective. We have more EQ to fix more issues. Going into the mag, we're adding back some top end here at some 40 kilohertz, and I think that's pretty much it, just adding some air, and then soothe to smooth things out again once more before everything goes into the Vox buses. The idea here of putting everything into the Vox buses was I wanted to add one last piece of saturation that equalized all the voices, but then treat them all pushing into it. So I would basically kind of add the sum bus and then work them back into the sum bus and get the sound to try to sound more equal between all of them. So yeah, that's kind of how I broke it down to achieve that. So if we listen to just the vocals on each one of them.
Oh, and now these motherfuckers send out good vibrations. Like obviously, that's why they really got a problem with me. Go.
And Spitty.
Open, oh you don't know this. Focus in my forces. Play like Star Wars and change the course of my commotion. Moving on.
And then Justo.
He played no games, still killing the shit. My vocals stay known for the border, should get citizenship, some free healthcare.
So equalizing a lot of the dub's still going. Equalizing a lot of like the tones. Justo is the most different because there's something in the room sound that's happening on his microphone, but still trying to find a way to balance them all so that when you actually get into the full track.
He played no games, still killing the shit. My vocals stay known for the border.
It sounds as best as it can. And then, just because it's old school stuff, we put in some different like movie chop samples just between all the verses, just to give it a little bit of vibe and extend the track out and make it more than just straight rapping. And then there's other things that were done in terms of like there's a second sample done in Spitty's verse, and there's some different dropouts of the drums in different people's verses, and that's just to keep things from getting monotonous and boring and keep things interesting. Other than that, I think the last things to call out, in this track, there was only a single reverb. We're using capital reverb on everybody. It's a simple track. It's a boom bap track. Didn't feel like I needed a whole lot in terms of the reverb. More interesting things were done on the dubs in terms of using the reflection filters, which add a bit of room to the dubs. And then they all kind of lead back into like this echo boy at the end that makes, a cool atmospheric type sound with the reverbs, but overall keeping it fairly simple. And then some summing, compression at the end, some tape saturation at the end, and what's on my main doesn't really matter because that's just for sending to artists. Like I bounce out my submix. There's another video on that. Go check out my channel why I use a submix. But I bounce out my submix and then I master it in a separate session. So that's pretty much the breakdown of this track. I'll link the track in the bio. Make sure to go check that out. It's a dope track. If you want more stuff like this, let me know. And otherwise, have yourself a good day.